Welcome everybody. Welcome to another edition of Nain's Shorts. Thank you for joining me, those faithful viewers. I do appreciate liking and subscribing, all that. Thank you very much for that. Before we start, once again, in a couple of weeks, that will be the 13th of April in Carson City, Nevada. John Atkinson's Wolf's Den Martial Arts Academy will be hosting SGM Master Green. SGM Harry Green? Yeah, I said that wrong. Anyways, SGM Harry Green, Knife and Stick, some Serrata seminar. So definitely if you can make it out there, please do. And then on the 20th, we have the VA Martial Arts Collaborative in Manteca. The following Saturday will be 8 different instructors, including Grandmaster Bob Gomez and a few other of our friends whose names I can't remember exactly right now, and I don't want to mess them up, but look up the list. The VEA Academy on Facebook, as well as Mike Cardenas. He has all the info, as he is the one hosting it in his own school. So look out for that. Hope to see you there. So today's topic has come up because one of my cousins asked me a interesting question. He said, on your videos, why don't you show techniques that I can learn and then do? Well, for those of you who have been training for a long time, for those of you who know the show, that's not really what this is about. But it's a topic worth then considering. Where do techniques come into play once you start taking it out of the realm of the class setting? Because in a class setting, you have a compliant uke that's delivering a punch, oftentimes slow at the beginning, so you can learn the movements. And then as you get better and progress, there's a bit more dynamics to it, but you still know what punch is being thrown. So it becomes easy to learn the techniques, but sometimes we get too stuck on doing the technique, and when something changes, we have no idea what to do. So really, we talk more about concepts that can be applied to multiple things versus the idea of one specific technique that may or may not work depending on the compliance of the individual. If we think about it, in a real fight, you don't know the person's background. If they're somebody in your own school, then what kind of school do you have where you're fighting your fellow classmate for real? I mean, that's just kind of messed up. But it might happen. You never know. In that case, you know how they attack. You've fought them or sparred with them. And if you've known them for a long time, then you know what they're going to do. And if you're better or take advantage of that, then yeah, that is very helpful. But for the most part, you're not going to know what they're going to attack with or even how. Even if you do know, you pretty much have a 50-50 shot left or right. And if they do kicks, well, then you have a 25% chance of knowing what it is. But ultimately, if you're looking for it, you might still miss it. So how do we then prepare for attacks that are constantly changing? Mr. Eric. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello.
So, folks, this is Eric. He is another of Rico's students, up-and-comer. He's trying to take my spot. He's only been doing it for 2 years, and the bastard's farther along than I was at 2 years. But we won't get into that. I'm not bitter. That's not why I'm saying it. I'm only saying it because he's progressed very quickly in a short amount of time. But you have other martial arts in your background, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. So
Dabbled here and there.
So you've dabbled here. You've done it for many years. I mean, on and off. Right?
That's right.
Okay, well, I don't know. I was asking. I wasn't confirming because I really don't know. But what we're talking about is the idea of a technique. So he gives me a right punch. First of all, I knew what punch was coming. If I got hit, I'm an idiot because I didn't do the technique that I was supposed to do. Very basic technique. He throws the punch again. Pop, pop. There it is. I hit him. I move on to something else. I take the face, take a knee, drop him to the ground. Oscar, there's your technique. He knows what I'm talking about. Anyways, very simple, right? Now, would you punch that way?
Possibly.
So you would throw a punch and put all your weight into it. You because
I would
again,
like to think at this point, no.
No. And that's where we're going with this conversation. He has a good idea of what he's doing. So would he punch that way? No. If you threw a real right punch, what would you do? How would you do it? Go ahead. How you would? Right? Okay. But would you hold it out there?
No.
No. Again, how would you throw the punch? Exactly. When would I have time to even do the technique? First of all, his natural punch wasn't the straight one that he threw first for me to be able to do that technique. Secondly, when he threw it, the moment we made contact, he moved on to something else. So I couldn't even think about doing that technique. And the simple answer to that deficiency would be learn more techniques. But how many techniques can you truly remember? And how many of them overlap? And ultimately, why do they overlap? What's the commonality between them that really makes them effective? If he throws a punch, all I really want to do is not get hit by that. This had nothing to do with the technique. But look, I'm so close to him. So okay, but then, oh wait, there's usually footwork in techniques. So what's the footwork then for? Well, to get out of the way. He throws a punch, I move out of the way. He brought in his second hand up. Awesome. But guess what? He's not in the best position for him to actually have done anything significant with it. Meanwhile, boop, 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 boop. Just from taking the concept of the footwork. The original footwork was to step to my left because I was going to be on the outside of the opponent. He changed the way that he throws things. So I had to adapt automatically to what was going on and do something else. My first bit, he throws a punch, I did this. Holy crap, right? My feet didn't really move, but I still didn't get hit. But ultimately, he's going to throw something else. So what would be a better concept for me to use in that instance where he does throw it and I go, oh shit, oh, there you go, now I extend it. Sure, his hand was out, but I have better leverage and I was able to push him out of the way. Now I can get into, oh wait, isn't this the technique that we originally were showing? Oh, okay. So now he throws that punch again. Now I know, oh, I can then insert whatever it is I needed to do. I took the technique that I did at the beginning, which, by the way, we just kind of made up as we were going along, and I applied it in a different sense. But what am I really looking at? What is really happening here? An idea came up. Now, you've heard us talk about the 360 idea in reference to you as the individual. There's different points you can move on. But without realizing it, and oftentimes without any real exploration, your opponent, regardless of what they know or don't know, what techniques they've learned or even art that they practice, they're also fighting in a 360 idea. What do I mean by this? So he throws a punch. I avoid it. Now where's his target? His second punch would then come to my face. So he's constantly adjusting. He even moved his feet to get a better shot. Why? Because he has enough training to know from here that is not really going to hurt. But if I step in and put my weight behind it, now there's going to be power. So he took the mechanics of what he knows to be a good punch and he changed it because the target changed. Even though he, as somebody who I've never met before, in this particular scenario, may not have the same training or concepts, he's still constantly adjusting to my movements. He has to. If he's no good at all, he's never going to be able to adjust to anything that I do, in which case you could probably win the fight fairly easily. He throws a punch and I move over here, he has no adjustments to it. But he's trained. I move, he throws another punch, now I know that I can go into something else. And we stopped here because, yeah, I'm taking care of everything that he's throwing, but I'm also looking at whatever targets I have. I can stun him here and move on to the next thing, so on and so forth. Because I'm no longer thinking about just, okay, he's throwing the punch, this is his target. So I'm going to back up. Now he throws the punch again, I'm going to move forward. A lot of the times we get stuck in this back and forth linear movement, but we forget, oh look, I can go around him. I can go to this side, but he can too. So if we use this 360 idea and he throws a punch and I stay out here, haven't I given him the target? Don't I have the space? Because now when he goes for his target, I can just move on to something else. And here's the technique again on this side. Did I have to learn the variations of the technique we just created? Or did I just have to realize that I can move in any omnidirection that I want to? Because it's not about the techniques that you use, it's what you're trying to effectively accomplish, which is stop him from hitting me, which there's a million different ways you can do that, but also prevent him from continuing to try to hit me, which often requires a submission or a flat-out knockout, or any amount of pain that will just get them to realize, I don't want to continue this. Eric, thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it very much. So here we are. A technique that was neither broken down, that was neither taken step by step, a technique that many of you have probably seen or a variation of or have done yourselves. One that we created on camera, on the spot, because, well, it's a common thing to see from a straight right punch, but all of a sudden, we started adding the realism of the changes that happen. Granted, was there any real dynamics where he's really throwing power behind that? No, because again, we're doing it for the camera. But that would be another aspect then to add to the training. But the most, or the biggest thing that we can take away from this little back and forth that I had with Eric was that I wasn't thinking about this straight line. Because even his punch wasn't a straight line anymore. So I couldn't think of it the way that it was taught. And I couldn't do the technique the way that I would have learned it. But still, I was able to get to the position where I could effectively throw that knee. Let's say that was the emphasis of that technique, of getting somebody to the point where you can really launch that knee into them. And if that is the purpose, how many different ways can we get to that end point? And if we think of our sphere of influence, these circles, and we just imagine two of them coming together, there are cross sections where the two people come. And if you're aware that those cross sections are going to happen regardless of what system they do, well, then you know the holes. You know where you can go. You know which direction they have to turn and or punch or kick to hit their target, because you're ultimately their target. And if you understand those things, then you can start conceptualizing ways or places that you can move into that minimizes their ability to use their weapons, which is their arms or their legs. I'm sure some of you have even trained headbutts and all these other things. Cijo Johnny Oliva, shout out to you. I believe you're healing very well after your surgery. Thank God. Hope to see you on the mat soon. I'll try to get out there and see you as soon as I possibly can. But this gentleman is an advocate of training every part of your body to be a point of contact, to be a weapon. Not just the basic punch, not just the basic chop and elbows, shoulder checks, using the bicep, using the forearm, using the blade of the arm. Knee, thighs, hips, everything can be a point of contact. And sure, we can train every single one of those pieces, or we can just start conceptualizing that the same movements that we use, the same punches that we learn, they can be placed in different positions, and they can be adjusted as needed to get to our targets that are constantly going to move. Because if anybody stands there and just gets punched, they have other problems that you don't want to get involved with. Which means that a real opponent is probably going to move around. A real opponent is probably not going to tell you what they're going to do. And they're definitely not going to be compliant to what you wish to accomplish. So if you take a concept, an idea, and you apply it to everything you know, then you can expand it in any direction that you need. And if you consider that idea to be a sphere, 360 mode, that applies not just to your influence, to your movements and techniques, but also to your opponents. And if you can constantly mesh those two together, if you can constantly see where they're going and why they're going there, primarily to hit you, that's usually the why, then you can circumvent, you can snuff out whatever it is they intended to do and get across your point, which in the demonstration earlier was to knee Eric. That wasn't the point that we originally started with, but it's the point that kept coming up because that was the beginning. That was still true to the technique, but it wasn't accomplished the same way, because there is no way, even in class, that somebody can punch at you the exact same way every single time. You do get adjustments, but it's those adjustments, and when your body learns to do them without thinking, you can make a technique work even when the uke isn't as compliant as they should be or want to be. And then hopefully that also translates to a physical attack that has no bearing in class, that is somebody really trying to hurt you. But I think it's these concepts that allow us to bridge that gap between the two. So, talking about this 360 mode, how would you apply that to what you do? If you have any questions about it, I would love to express some of my own ideas, but ultimately, I leave it open to you, because it is what you take away from this information that's going to matter most. My interpretation is that and nothing else. What you make of it and how you make it work becomes the far more crucial part. So, Oscar, I hope this answers your question as to why we don't show techniques, because you can learn those from many places. But how to apply them when things are constantly changing, hopefully this gives an insight to those who are practicing, those who have practiced, and those who wish to continue practicing, to be able to evolve what they know into something more effective than what they can already do. So, thank you very much for joining me on another one of Nain's Shorts. Thank you very much to a good friend Eric for helping me out today. And I'll see you on the next one. Till then, 3, 2, 1, cut!